Westfield.
In my eternal quest to choose the most marketable and popular topics for videos here on the YouTubes, I decided I'd put something together about all the real-time strategy games on SNES. That idea was rubbish, as there's not very many of them and they're mainly Amiga ports. Throw the Mega Drive in there though and you've got yourself a video topic. The quick and early reminder, like YouTube people told me to do, you should subscribe because subscriptions put hair on my chest and make me smile like this. Also, I have a Patreon and any and all support on there is greatly appreciated. Even $1 makes me smile like this. Right, so the RTS isn't a genre that's ever been associated with consoles. It's at home on the PC, the greats like Command & Conquer, Starcraft, Total Annihilation and Gender Wars all proving to be classics on the home computer. And at best an afterthought on console, if they even came out there at all. But there was a surprising number of RTSs that came to the Mega Drive and SNES in the late 80s and early 90s. I'd say surprising, I mean 16 of them. Here's your list, friends. If you've ever paid attention to anything, which I recommend you do if only to stop you from making those idiotic comments you definitely make all over YouTube, you'll know Herzog Zwei is one of the very earliest real-time strategy games ever made. You'll also know what makes it odd in that respect is that it was released exclusively on the Mega Drive, helping to kickstart a genre that would soon find its home on the PC. What a zany world we do indeed live in. Now going back to Werner's finest hour, it's clear that this is very much the proto-RTS. There are elements you'll know and instantly recognise, like building units and capturing bases to improve production, but it's all caught inside some obtuse late 80s Japanese console game logic, coupled with difficulty that actively makes you want to cry. It's actually a mix of arcade shooter and RTS, with direct control over your main unit, a transforming ship robot, providing most of the combat as you pootle around and try to shoot down your enemy's equivalent before you run out of fuel and oh, you've lost again. Herzog Zwei also acted as an early inspiration for MOBAs, but seeing as I've never bothered with that and have no intimate knowledge of it, I'll just make some sweeping generalisation about the entire genre and pass it off as informed opinion, zing. Yeah, Herzog, it's alright, you know? Genuinely interesting from a historical perspective and all that. It's just really hard when you've no idea what you're doing. The game that actually popularised the RTS on PC made its way to Mega Drive too, in an early example of Westwood bothering to bring its games to console. I have no idea whose bright idea it was to offer up this complex mix of building, worm avoiding and spice definitely not drugs collecting on a 3-button pad and a console that could barely handle it, but, well, they did alright. Dune 2 set the standard for the RTS, and so very much of it is recognisable to this day. I mean, it even uses some of the same sound effects from Command & Conquer, and quickly established the norm of central base, harvester, and loads of pointless scout buggies. It's dated, yes, it's especially clunky on Mega Drive, sure, but it's a hell of a lot of fun and offers up a genuine challenge. Even if the challenge is in the form of two things, the unrelenting waves of attacking units coming from enemy bases, and the fact you forget to avoid the sandworms and lose your best units, and it's entirely your fault. There wasn't much else in the traditional RTS vein that came out on Mega Drive after Dune 2. From having a hand in creating the genre with Herzog Zwei, towards the end of its life it was graced with the presence of the game that made the RTS what it is today. Which is a nice poetic touch, I'd say. You can't select groups of units though, and that makes me want to burn down this stupid desert planet Git. Well before Jurassic Park came on the scene and made an RTS based on dinosaurs seem like the most natural thing in the world, Dino Brotherz was doing just that on, for some reason, the Mega Drive. It ended up being a fun couple of games, each incorporating aspects of the genre that would become the norm in years to follow, a hierarchy for unit building, this time being from herbivore to carnivore to, eggivore? Careful resource or grass management, and the desire to try and tank rush your opponent with as many allosaurs as you could hatch in a short period. It wasn't like much else on the console, and while clunky as Captain Clunk of Clunksville, USA, it's still capable of being enjoyed, as the professionals say, today. The sequel, which you won't see here because of recording issues, did that thing you'd expect sequels to do. Ramped everything up, changed about some controls, made it all run a bit smoother and make a bit more sense, while generally keeping the premise the same. You still made dino eggs, you still had an over-reliance on herbivores early on, and you still had to wrestle with common sense to figure out how to make your idiot feather lizards go where you wanted them to. Both the Dino Brotherz games are some of the oddest titles to appear on the Mega Drive, not necessarily for their content. Dinosaurs eating other things is pretty straightforward, and there's little about it outside the controls that doesn't make sense. No, they were odd because of how close they were to how the actual proper RTS genre turned out on PC, and how the first game came out well before Dune 2 did. It's just like, why is this not talked about more? The mind, she boggles. A series of tiny battlefields, teams of 5 soldiers hellbent on shooting each other in the face, a stupid name. Yep, this was a mid-90s Mega Drive game, alright. What it also was a form of real-time strategy game. Which was weird. Because why would you do that? Ah well, best not to ask too many questions. General Chaos brought that strategy to a console you'd mostly know for action and arcadey games, so it definitely left an impact on the few who did play it back in the day, even if it wasn't exactly as influential as other RTSs on this list. Hilariously, there was a fair bit of satire surrounding all of General Chaos, warmongering idiots sending countless nameless grunts to their death while slanging each other from afar and perpetuating a war of no end. It's almost subversive in some ways, and the fact it was published by EA just makes me smirk. Can you imagine any major publisher these days coming out with a game that, whether it actually manages to do it well or not, openly mocks military conflicts? The internet would be furious, because it's full of idiots and should be shut down. Anyway, General Chaos wasn't a traditional RTS, but featured plenty about it that ties in with the genre as a whole. Small scale, quick-paced skirmishes it might be, but your direct control over units as you operated your strategy on the fly made for an engaging, exciting, and different game from all the other platformers and arcade shooters of the era. It would never win awards or go down in history as being specifically important to the genre, but General Chaos certainly bags itself a participation award. Just like all you stinking millennials would want. Wait, what do you mean I'm a millennial too? Oh, for fuck. Strategy for terminal bores it might be, but Warrior of Rome and its sequel still incorporated RTS elements in a large part. You avoid base and unit building, harvesting of resources and all that jazz, but instead get a game of strategically moving units around the map in order to... Well, I only played the first level before I got really bored, so all I can say is to repel a seaborne invasion. Maybe it gets more exciting after that, but I for one will never know. The sequel, another not shown here owing to the fact it wouldn't bloody work, made things look less like the game was made in 1739, but still followed a similar pattern of hands-on RTS on the world map, hands-off watch idiots fight in battle maps. I'm sure there are fans of these games around, but really I've only put them in here because I feel like I have to. Moving on. I've seen Gameground referred to as an RTS, so I gave it a go. I mean, it's in real time and there is an element of strategy to it, so there's an argument to be made. But the argument would be wrong. No, this is more Gauntlet than Command & Conquer, as well as an irritating game full of stupid collision detection. So Gameground does not get to feature as one of the actual RTSs in this list, and yet I get to have my cake and eat it too as I feature it in the Not an RTS section of the video! Huzzah! Why waste time going over each one of these individually when instead I can just bundle them together and point out none of them are real-time strategy games? Why indeed? Lemmings is a classic, brilliant and lovely puzzle game that had its music mangled on the Mega Drive. Cannon Fodder is closer to an arcade shooter with elements of strategy which until making this video I had never played on console, and oh crikey it works well. And Syndicate is an absolute laughingstock on SNES and Mega Drive. Even if it's quite close to being an RTS, I'm just going to summarily write it off because I'm still bitter about how it changed for those two consoles. They're all tactics or puzzle games basically, and not what I'd class as an RTS. My video, my rules. It's SimCity in space, sure, but Utopia adds one element that takes it from a straight-up city builder to something I think it's fair to class as an RTS. Combat. While more about defending from incoming alien assaults than tank rushing an underprepared opponent, Utopia does still fit the bill in my once again scientifically accurate studies. And while I'd say it's largely forgotten in mainstream discussions, yeah, you only get mentions of it from edgy cool dudes like me, Utopia was an early example of the RTS genre turning into its own thing, and yep, it's still a bunch of fun. One thing that made Utopia stand out on the SNES was how it actually incorporated the system's mouse peripheral. You know, that thing people only ever used for Mario Paint and no other thing ever. Did it work? Well, in my official opinion, I have zero idea because I don't have a SNES mouse so didn't get to try it out. Let's go with, yeah, sure, why not? As a port, Utopia was actually pretty good. It runs at a pace it's difficult to register as actually showing any, and the pad controls take some learning, and oh dear crikey, the music is irritating after 5 minutes. But I could see this stealing away hours from those snooty SNES owners back in the day. I do wonder if it would have ever been possible on the Mega Drive, but I don't see Jellicoe running back to hammer out a Sega version just to sate my curiosity. The meanies. I think the Ogre Battle series is probably more famous these days for Tactics Ogre, the second game released, and yes, that's a turn-based tactics game. A brilliant one, and one I would likely marry would it have me. But the first game in the series on SNES was actually a real-time strategy game, at least in the most part. Battles were an automated turn-based affair with a bit of input from the player, but the main attraction, navigating and liberating a world map, took place in a pretty standard RTS fashion. Deploying units, upgrading and strengthening them, planning their routes, telling your wizard and dog group to go hide in the mountains, forgetting about that one unit right at the top of the map, then remembering as they get assaulted 6 times in a row, that kind of thing, you know? Ogre Battle was a unique title on the SNES, and it still stands in a lonely part of the genre field. I don't know what I'm saying. Ogre Battle 64 went back to the RTS style, and there was a Neo Geo Pocket Color spin-off in the genre too, but what else is there on console that really makes you think this is like that game what is called Ogre Battle? Not much, or anything, and please do feel free to correct me in the comments, as I'm sure you're already itching to. I'm happy thinking of this as an actual unique RTS on SNES, so there. It seems like an obvious one when you think about it, a relatively hands-off method of controlling a strategy game, some nice green landscapes, and giant mechs. That's just the kind of thing you expect on SNES, and it's exactly what was provided with Metal Marines. It almost functions in a turn-based fashion, but believe me, it doesn't feel that way when you're playing under constant fear of another missile attack coming in from the enemy. No, this is base-building, tech-upgrading, defense and attack-minded real-time strategy of the most fun kind, just without direct control of your attacking units. Metal Marines was an odd one in that it was made for both SNES and PC at the same time, not typically something you'd see for any game in the early 90s, never mind a unique spin on the then still forming RTS. As far as I'm aware, the differences weren't all that pronounced between console and computer either, though that did change when the PC got a spec'd up version a couple of years later. Regardless, it's safe to say Metal Marines was and is a solid, imaginative and creative RTS that's worth a pop today, and is the kind of thing I recommend to you, my beloved viewer, even if I did have to turn cheats on at one point, just so I could record some footage uninterrupted by enemy attacks. Initially I put both of these, they're pretty much the same game, in the ones that aren't section, but on actually playing them and thinking about it and playing them a bit more, then thinking, then having to lie down because thinking hurts, chowing down on a classic sandwich, then thinking one last time, thus risking a braineurysm, I decided I think they actually are RTSs with a definite whiff of tower defense about them. I'm not differentiating, though there are small differences between the two, as the main focus is the same. You don't directly control your players on the pitch, instead using a cursor to navigate a map at the bottom of the screen and issue orders. Run here, shoot now, kick his legs off, that kind of thing. Not only is it a surprising take on a footballing game, it's one that actually works as an idea and oddly makes sense now that I've played it. What it isn't, though, is actually much fun. Playing with the controller is hellish, the computer always knows what to do and what's going on, and my old man brain just can't keep pace. I have let you down, Zico, and for that, I can only apologise. Just because it's in real time doesn't mean it's fast-paced or remotely interesting to watch. Trust me, both popular games on the consoles are fun, even if they're slow. Very slow, oh so slow. But they're solid early entries into the god game genre, which in many ways spun off into the main RTS Pantheon. Wait, you should say Pantheon and relate it to the gods, that'd be a clever way of spinning it. Note to self, don't forget to edit the script to include that zing. Oh. So Populous and its sequel made their way to the SNES and Mega Drive, bringing with them two entirely new worlds from before the horror of Peter Molyneux's lofty promises. While each veers far more in the direction of strategy than any of the other elements we've come to associate with the RTS genre, there is still some brawling to be had and conquest to be enjoyed. It's just a bit hands-off, let's say. More focused on divine intervention than direct orders, and more about not really remembering how to play the game than making something captivating for the viewing audience. Sorry. Wouldn't you know it, it's another Bullfrog God game, this one a spin-off of Populous and pretty much the same kind of thing, just without divine intervention. Powermonger, in context, ended up being more like the modern RTSs that came to define the genre. It's a military conquest, the sacking of towns and villages, building up your forces, and generally being a militaristic git while slaughtering sheep, all pretty recognisable stuff. The console ports were a bit of a surprise back in the day, as Powermonger operated with a three-dimensional engine and so was seen as a bit of a push for the SNES and Mega Drive hardware. Neither does a particularly admirable job, I have to say, and as you can see from the SNES footage on show here, it ran, well, I mean it ran, that's about all you can say for it. A good game backing it up, even if it's just another case of the mechanics behind it being lost in the ether, good god I'm so old, but not a console legend. Just a console thing that was there. Before Command & Conquer came into my life via a blockbuster rental of the PlayStation version of all things, it was all about Mega-Lo-Mania. Simplistic in retrospect, sure, but there's still more than enough going in this classic RTS to make it worth a go today. In fact, its simplicity might work in the game's favour for some people, with the hyper-complexity of the modern RTS somewhat off-putting at the best of times. No, this is just start with a base somewhere, mine some stuff, invent some stuff with a tech tree, build some stuff, win with ages for ease, then realise you have to think a tiny amount as of about the 4th epoch because the computer starts building stuff like defences. Easy. The Mega Drive and SNES ports are great, hard to get wrong really. I mean, it'll never be as good without a mouse, but it's not a game demanding 25,000 clicks per minute, so the pace is easily manageable. You could use the SNES mouse in Europe actually, but I don't think anybody knew that, so let's ignore it. I also don't think Mega-Lo-Mania, or Tyrant's Fight Through Time as it was ridiculously renamed in the States, was too popular on consoles. You just never hear it mentioned in those best of lists. But it's a welcome part of the lineup for both consoles, and anything that allows more people to hear, "We've nuked them!" is truly a great thing. And that, friends, is a list. Feel free to throw in any and all thoughts into the comments on RTSs you think I've missed. First person to say Warcraft wins a prize! Psych, there is no prize, suck it nerds! Thanks for watching. Again, a click of subscribe will make me this happy, and any support you might want to offer me on Patreon would make me so happy! It's fair to say this bunch of Patreons have already made me this happy. And it's even fairer to say this bunch of higher tier Patreons have made me ludicrously happy. Video Brains or Jake Tucker, Takara Hoshi, Lola Osman. None of these games are as good as any of the Command & Conquer games, not even the shoddy PlayStation port that made me truly fall in love with the series and the genre as a whole. Bye!